All right, welcome everybody. This is the Reality Czars podcast, and we're your hosts, Nate and Tony.
Hello.
And we have an awesome guest on today. We have the great and powerful William Ramsey. William, thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and where they can find you?
Well, thanks for having me. There is a reverb from coming through from somewhere. Maybe it's on me.
I'm not hearing it, luckily.
Okay.
It might have been me. My mic just unplugged.
Okay. No, I hear it's gone now.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah, my name is William Ramsey.
Sorry, did we lose you there for a second?
No, I'm hearing a reverb like I hear my voice back to me.
Oh man.
Yeah, now it's better. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, there's something going on. Let me turn this off. Yeah, I'm hearing my voice back from me.
Should we, Tony, you all right?
Yeah.
Everything good on your end?
Everything's on my end. It's good.
Okay.
Well, we're live.
We are live, so everyone gets to hear this. This is wonderful.
Okay, well, you guys turn your mics off.
Okay. Let me turn off my mic here.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely. You guys aren't even talking. Everything is coming back around. It's like Tony, a 5-second delay.
Tony, go on mute real fast.
All right, wait a minute. Where's mute? Okay, that do anything?
I have no idea. Let me see. Yeah, my name is William Ramsey. I've written. It's coming back around. Anyway, no, it's definitely no. So I don't think it's on my end either. It's still. Let me turn these off. Let's try this.
We can always end this and start it all over again. We can try.
Let's go back. Let me do audio. I'm on my internal speakers now. So anyway, my name is William Ramsey. I published my first book in 2010. My first book was Prophet of Evil. This is it right here. Kind of republished it. So I've written like 4 or 5 books now. But this was my first book, Prophet of Evil. Then I wrote Abomination, which is about the West Memphis 3 case. And then Children of the Beast, which was about Aleister Crowley's influence on the 20th century. And pretty much my first book was a biography about Aleister Crowley. And then my most recent book is Global Death Cult. So this one is about kind of like a global cult that is called the Order of Nine Angles, its influence, how it's influenced the far right. I've done 5 documentaries, and then I also have I have a podcast, which really is an investigative journalist podcast. It's titled William Ramsey Investigates. It's in the top 1% podcasts in the world. So I cover a lot of different subjects. I covered history, parapolitics, true crime, really kind of anything it's pretty idiosyncratic. So I definitely cover what I'm interested in, what I think people would be interested in. And so that's kind of like that's the short version of my brief bio, I guess.
Awesome, man. We are super happy to have you here. And I definitely want to talk about your latest book. That one was absolutely crazy. So you talk about how there is a global death cult that is that's influencing the right wing even now, right?
Correct. And I think it started really back in the 60s, but really what set them apart from other cult groups, like I studied Crowley's groups, a little bit of the Temple of Set, a little bit of the Church of Satan, but they have a much more kind of vicious outlook, which is really in part of their core manual is to kill somebody. So it's really kind of focused on murder, and it differentiates them, and it's grown really from really small pamphlets in the past to current time because of the internet. It spread around. So really what caught my eye, I was a researcher into this phenomenon called the smiley face killers. which is about young men disappearing and being found in water. It's still kind of happening to this day, 2022. But somebody came up to me, Igor Sarsky, and said, "Have you heard this group?" And I hadn't heard of the Order of Nine Angles, and maybe had come across them briefly, but I really did a kind of pretty thorough research of the group, and the book was the outcome of it. But I really only started researching it in 2020. But the reason what really set me off on to write the book was that there were murders and things happening in real time in the real world. So there was a guy in Toronto. His name was William von Nudegem, and he crept up on an older man and slit his throat, killed him, and he got arrested. There was another guy by Nathan Meltzer who tried to set up his military group using and communicating with the Order of Nine Angles, who he thought was the Order of Nine Angles, and he was reading their manuals and doctrines. And there was actually a picture of one of the Order of Nine Angles books called The Sinister Tradition on his desk. And so those were two cases that really were coming to the fore. And you see these events, and then things happened in Russia. And then I was kind of following and reading and following up on far right groups here in the States. One is called Adam Waffle. It's a fairly recent group, maybe in 2015. And the ideology of the Order of Nine Angles has permeated a certain section of that group. So there's actually was kind of a fight within this far right group, believe it or not, between adherents to this ONA ideology and then just kind of standard Nazis. So the arc of the book really starts at the very beginning of the person who probably put together this whole group. His name is David Mead in the UK, and he was friends with a lot of Nazis in the UK, far right. And then it progresses into the present, how I just try to show step by step the ONA, the ideology, and then how it kind of permeated. And they have it's designed kind of like a spy or like a communist cadre, where they have little cells. It would be like a terrorist cell, but they call their cells Nexians. So there's little plots all around the world, and that's what makes the title make sense, Global Death Cult, because this group has these Nexians in the U.S. and there's Nexians in Canada, UK, mainland France, Italy, Serbia, Russia. So there's connections with this ideology. And this is the second time I've upgraded my book. So when I published it in it's actually May 2021, and then in October I re-upped it because there was a murder that took place that involved somebody who was writing for the ONA. This guy's name was Daniel Hussein. Daniel was spelled Danyal. He just got sentenced. He just was found guilty, I think, at the end of 2021. But he was reading literature, or he was on a website, and he got this idea that he wrote a blood pact to this demon and went into a park in northwestern London and killed two people with a knife, two women. And his whole thing was kind of like the ONA ideology, which is you murder somebody and try to get away with it. So I think these events are happening currently. There's been governments in the U.S., Australia, UK who are trying to ban some of these groups that have ONA affiliations because they're so hardcore. So you had this kind of group. Adam Waffen had these kind of divisions, like Führerkrieg divisions and Sonnenkrieg. And actually, Sonnenkrieg was banned in Australia, and if you were a member in Australia, it would earn you an immediate 10-year sentence. So, it's on the radar.
That's fascinating. So people are still operating under that mantle, Order of Nine Angles, to this day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that there still are members. You can go to their website. Their main website, I think, is o9a.org.
That's fascinating.
There's still these Nexians. There's still connections. People are still being arrested who've been associated with them.
So it sounds like maybe one of the reasons why they are they seem pretty decentralized too, right?
Right. And that's kind of curious that you say that, because I think that was their inherent design, is that they
makes them more dangerous.
Yeah. They claim externally. I think that there's internal communications. They use encrypted software and encrypted information, PGP keys. But I think externally they tell people that, you kind of just have the ideology. So it's almost like somebody formulated this ideology and sent it out almost like software.
Yeah, so anyone could pick this up and start their own chapter, sort of thing, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think,
and that is definitely scary.
What do you know about the person who started it? Was it like how serious was it when it began? Was it just like this mean troll, or what was?
No, I think he was a very serious member of the National Socialist movement in the UK. So they used to have in the UK, they kind of had a popular, more far right movement. It's not really the same as what it was. There was an actual Action, I think, was the group, but he was part of it. So Myatt was floating around with these characters that a lot of people in the UK know. And he was very serious, but I think he kind of split his time as National Socialist and an occultist. So he was always kind of formulating these things. And it's kind of interesting. This is a post-Hitler, post kind of Crowley movement. They started off just writing 3-page manuscripts. So you can see these 3-page manuscripts, and then they started putting them together. So a 3-page manuscript became a 10-page, and then 10 became 50, and then they organized them into books. But he was literally just printing these things out pre-internet on ringed binders. I mean, back in the day, really primitive type. I consider very primitive these days. But you could see that his ideology was coming together. He was an interesting guy. He had been to college. He had money from his father. And he spent time having different experiences. And I think that's kind of, and he was in kind of an international sensibility. I think he grew up in Singapore. His dad worked for the UK in kind of international capacity. So I think that he had a very kind of global sensibility, actually, because of his ability to travel and see things. And I think he integrated into this ONA thing. So he actually spent 18 months in a Catholic monastery. But it still came out writing Satanist literature. So it's a little bit paradoxical.
Yeah.
So I think he integrated that into it. So he integrated the chanting into this. You can actually go to William von Nudegim's website on YouTube and see him do some of these ONA chants. They're still up and online.
That's fascinating and horrifying.
So he had this concept so you'll see these kind of new concepts, but he has this concept that he put in called insight rolls. So you do, as part of your training, he has a 7-step thing called the septenary way. Part of it is to infiltrate in groups and learn from them and try to fill them with ONA ideas. So I think something very similar, if not right on point, like that happened with the Atomwaffen group, where people infiltrated and then put in ONA. So I think they're following some of those doctrines.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the insight role could be anything. You become a cop, you become in the military, so you're gathering this strength, and so you see, and I mean, just very strange ideas, like all based upon kind of old English words. And so you see the kind of concepts that I didn't see in other kind of occult traditions. I think he deliberately kind of excised a lot of Kabbalic ideas and anything that reeked of Judaism or Christianity. So, I mean, to him. Yeah, so it's and I don't think it's very big. I don't think that there's like 1 million people about to come over the border. But I think that if you're in the wrong person in the wrong place, alienated, nihilistic, online a lot, and somebody says something, that seems to be the background of the people who get involved in the far right or in the ONA too. They're all kind of, at least the ones that I could tell, because they actually practice this thing where you don't show any external show signs to people that you're a member of the ONA. It's really kind of a strange ideological thing. So anyway, Myatt was for real. I think he was for real. He was associated with a guy who's known in the UK as the Nail Bomber, which is a very important event in the UK. And there's actually a documentary about it that's on Netflix. And Myatt was part of what they go through, kind of changes in names and stuff, kind of reform. It was called the National Socialist Movement at one point. And this guy took 3 bombs and I think I can't remember how many people he killed, but he injured over 500. So he's called the London Nail Bomber. His name was Copeland. But he was part of, and I think a member of the NSM and associated with Myatt. And Myatt knew some of these other well-known characters, and they actually kind of knew each other too. So you see this guy, Rockwell in the States, in the U.S., who died, was associated with another guy whose name is Colin Wilson was his name. So it's actually interesting because the farther you go back, you see that the National Socialist movement was also post-Hitler had an international component to it for sure.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's fascinating. And Nazism has always had some strange ties to the occult.
Very. I mean, Hitler very much, even before the National Socialist movement, Hitler was reading German esotericism. There's this magazine called Ostara. I covered some of the stuff in Children's Abuse, my book about him. He had a book by a guy by the name of Schertl. And he signed all over the book. Hitler is writing notations all over it. And I think the title was Magic Theory. And it was very similar to Crowley's kind of title of Crowley's magical opus. But it was something like magical practice and something like that in German. And Hitler's underlining things and learning. So I think that the Nazi movement was rife with occultists. They hated Christianity. They wanted to ban Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fascinating.
You see that similarity between Hitler and Mine, no doubt. Anti-Christian animus.
They also had a strange tie, though, to the Catholic Church. No, the Catholic or the Nazis.
I think to a certain extent, yeah. There's no doubt that the Catholic Church was much more sympathetic to the Nazis than maybe some other social movement. I mean, the Nazis helped them get out. They ran the rat lines. A lot of them were through the Catholic. The Nazis got out through the Catholic movement. Hitler was raised a Catholic.
Yeah.
And I don't think that because of the conservatism in Catholicism, I think they were less antagonistic towards German right wingers, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there is a strange connection too with like Catholicism and the right wing in general, as far as like they see the Enlightenment as a mistake. They see definitely the Reformation as a mistake. And so a lot of right wing tie back, traditionalism to the Catholic Church.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I think the real traditional Catholics think, they think that Luther was a heretic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Those are huge. Those 100-year wars were really brutal. Really vicious, some of the most vicious wars ever, where they would just go into a whole town and just exterminate everybody. Like that sensibility was there. Catholics have it. I mean, I was raised Catholic, but the Catholics have a habit of coming up against antagonists and just wiping them out of different sides, even before the Reformation. And that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so the Nazis. The Hitler, definitely an occultist, triumph of the will, very over-aligned to all occult ideas where the human will is in primacy. There's no God but man. And that I think is reflected in this group, the Order of Nine Angles, for sure.
That reeks of left-hand path. There's no God but man.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. So that's fascinating. I mean, Tony, the last interview that we just had was with Scott Horton, and we were talking about Ukraine and Russia, and we were talking about the actual Nazis that are still there. Yeah, exactly. They're the grandchildren of the Galatian Nazis. Is that what they were called? The SS that were there. And it's really, really fascinating. And I wonder if there's any strange ties there too, because you were also talking about things going on in Russia as well with some of these Order of Nine Angles.
They're on the right. So in the American right, there is a desire to be trained. So even these guys, like the head of Atomwaffen, he joined the National Guard. So I think so he could be trained too. Military training. Part of some of the far rightists here go to Ukraine and fight in the Azov battalion. So there's been connections of really hardcore racist right people here in the States connected to Azov battalion. Now, I don't think it's a huge number, like thousands, but then the Azov battalion kind of has that kind of Nazi pedigree, no question about it. So, but as far as the ONA ideology influencing the Azov battalion, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know what the real ideology is to know if it really was influenced by the ONA, but it's certainly like a right-wing fascist group.
Yeah, let's dig in a little bit into their beliefs. I mean, I'm really curious about this because, like, when I hear Nazi, I mean, I always get confused too. I mean, they call themselves National Socialists, right? And it's not necessarily like they didn't really focus on economics so much. I mean, I guess they sort of did, but it wasn't really a socialist movement. They were just like, what drives these people now? Like, what is some of the ideology between the Order of the Nine Angles?
So I definitely think that it is kind of a post-Hitler ideology, but I think what they realized, I think that Myatt realized that they weren't ever going to have popular support because of what happened in World War II was such a total disaster that not every people are going to be very hesitant. So I think his hesitant of joining that ideology and movement. So I think that this was a way for him to have power in small independent groups that still could be influential and carry on. But it's really the same kind of racism that really informed the Nazis that we're better, you're not, we can kill you off. So I think that similarity is a strain in the German National Socialism and in the ONA. But it's very complex. Somebody smart, whether it was Myatt or somebody else, and there's some dispute. Like some people, there are researchers into the ONA. They just say it's Myatt 100%. He's very cagey about him. So there's these multiple names. So somebody's using David Myatt, Anton Long, Stephen Brown. So there's pseudonyms there. So there is some controversy about whether 100% it's Myatt. I think it's mostly Myatt. But there might be some other people writing the original pamphlets. But very highly intelligent, very druidic. Like I said, the septenary way, you go through steps. You believe in exeatic behavior, which means you're constantly going out and doing things. One of the tests to go up this grade is to go out at night, lay down in a forest, and not move from sundown to sunrise. So like weird training, you're supposed to be able to, jog 12 miles or bike 150 miles. So there's a physical activity.
That's good.
And anti-alcoholism, it seems like. So there's a whole kind of mix that's in there. I mean, I do a whole section in my book just basically going through some of these concepts that he has. That's the contempt for other people that very much, I think, is similar to the Nazis, like I said, but they have this idea of aeonic change. So their 400-year plan is to go back into fascism, get rid of the dross of humanity, which they call Homo something. They're going to become a new man, Homo Galacticus, and go out into the stars. So they have kind of a space opera mythos, like that's where we're headed. But we got to get rid of all these other bums first, because they're holding us back. They're the ones.
That's super fascinating. So I wonder if like they're on board with like transhumanism and tie into all of these like new,
I think that there's some strange characters. I don't know how much of transhumanism really comes in, but I think that the new man idea, man as God, kind of the superior being, is very much part of their stuff. They have this idea of labyrinthos. Everything's kind of based on Greek. Myatt really loved ancient Greece and was influenced by the language and ideas. And he had this idea of labyrinthos mythologicus. So you're putting out fake things to the public, so they never really know what you mean. Mm-hmm. There's an oral tradition, which means that you can see their writing, but there's things that they just talk about. So they know, they're very sophisticated. So there's some things in writing that you would never know what it has to be passed from one person to another. So you see it's very complex. They have this idea of shape shifting. If you want to have a bad day, go watch the video by Ed Sheeran. It's called Bad Habits. The whole thing is based on ONA ideology. It's off the charts. Really.
On purpose?
Whoever put it together to put the ONA from the beginning. So it starts out with Ed Sheeran's at night. He's dressed as a vampire. He's drinking ketchup like it's blood. He's with his posse. He's got his group, kind of his Nexian, kind of his ONA group. They're out at night. They're flying through the air. They're acting like vampires. There's zombies. Everybody else is a zombie. They're all well dressed. He flies through a bunch of smiley face balloons. The whole lyrics are about meeting people and thinking about killing. I mean, we're listening to the lyrics too. Then it ends. So the sunrise comes up and that persona drifts off and he's back to being Ed Sheeran again. It's total O&A stuff.
That's wild.
Yeah, all their ideas take place at night. So almost everything that they do is not during daylight. So your tests are at night when you're supposed to go out and do whatever you're doing. It's always at night. So people are being they're not being it's not predictive programming. They are being literally occultized by watching that video. They don't know it, but they're definitely in a kind of a magical way. Just put it up right now. Bring it up. Bring up Bad Habits, because you'll see a visual representation of pure O&A.
Let's see.
I think that video has like right now it's got 300 million views on YouTube.
I've never heard of this guy.
Ed Sheeran?
No, who is he?
Ed Sheeran, he's like a huge global pop singer.
Okay.
That would be kind of wild if he was actually part of this.
1.2 million followers. Let's see. What's his most famous song?
I might have heard of songs. I don't know.
I'm sure you have.
I might have heard of this song.
Yeah, it's very new. I think that Bad Habits just came out like this year or last year.
Ed Sheeran.
So what makes you think it's specifically O&A?
Just for the reasons I just explained to you.
Well, yeah, but it sounds like specifically to this one group, because it seems a little bit vague from what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I think that there might be other groups that have this O&A stuff. Like, there's all kinds of strange,
oh yeah, for sure,
secret societies I'm not part of. But from the literature that I can tell, I've done a decent amount of reading in the occult.
The O&A stuff, like I went through it like a couple of years ago. I found them for some reason, but they seemed really practical. Like if you really wanted to sow chaos, it seemed like they had a good game plan on how to do that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, this is the first time we've ever done this, so hopefully I'm not going to screw this up. I'm going to screen share, and we're going to watch this video. Let's do this. Okay. Yeah, entire screen, sure.
Yeah, you go down to share and then share screen. Just pull the video off of this, off of that thing. It'll pull up. It'll pull it up. Just go to share screen.
Audio system.
Split your browser. Move your browser over to the left and then share that other browser.
Let's see here.
I might be able to do it.
I wish you could. Let's see.
Well, I might be able to do it. Let me see if I can do it. Okay, so you have to add my thing in there on the bottom.
Okay, Chrome tab. I think I just got this.
No, because it'll the whole screen will shift.
There we go. Here we go. You ready to do it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Skip that. There we go. Can you guys see this?
I can see it.
Yeah, I see it.
It's supposed to be full screen. Come on.
So the sun's going down, right? Starts off with the sun. Now we're dark. It's getting made up. It's basically a vampire.
Every time you come around, I can't say no. Every time the sun goes down, I let you take control. I can feel the paradise before my world implodes. And tonight had something wonderful. My bad habits lead to late nights, sitting alone. Conversations with a stranger I barely know. Swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. My bad habits lead to white eyes staring into space, and I know I lose control of the things that I say. Yeah, I was looking for a way out, now I can't escape. Nothing happens after 2. It
Definitely creepy.
Every pure intention ends when the good
So there's this
times
group, right? They're
start.
walking in a kind of gang.
Yeah.
Falling over everything to reach the first time spark.
Here's the giveaway right here.
Started on the neon lights and then it all got dark.
This is it right here.
I only know how to go too far. My bad habits lead to late nights
Smiley
and
face.
then alone. Conversations with a stranger I barely know. Swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. My bad habits lead to white eyes staring into space, and I know I lose control of the things that I say.
Oh, there, man. You got it.
Yeah,
Old
that's
Phil.
bizarre.
Old Phil died.
Yeah.
He's a new man.
Full
Full moon. Just watch the whole thing. All the symbolism. Bunch of zombies and nobodies. They're running around, so they're a different type of being. Their dress totally different.
We took the long way.
A lot of chaos and death.
Yep. He's dancing through it, right?
Till the fun run out. Now my bad habits lead to late nights and in alone. Conversations with a stranger I barely know. Swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do. My bad habits lead to white eyes staring into space, and I know I lose control of the things that I say. Yeah, I was looking for a way out, now I can't escape. Nothing happens after two. It's true. My bad habits lead to you.
Comes back to Ed Sheeran. Go read the. All you have to do is read my book.
Interesting. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, here's another one. Here's the shape shifting. This is a key element in actually taking on and letting the god come over you.
Yeah.
Especially interest of the One associated as the mage. Mythological ability of a living human being to somehow transform themselves into animals or even into an entirely different human body, but rather the practical ability to successfully assume various roles, identities, or personae, to live, to be, to act out the life of someone else, all for the purpose of obtaining self-knowledge and self-understanding.
Wow. That's crazy.
Crazy.
You know, it's they take things too far. Like there's like some weird positives.
You're actually quoting the lyrics of that song too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, they really are. I like some of those things are half positive where you're saying like you need to be able to run 12 miles. You should be able to bike. You know, I mean, there's this weird like, and I think that's how you get young men. You get them. You're like, because there's something about young men that they want to be strong. They want to be like the pinnacle. They want to be powerful. They want to be, like able to kill. There's that weird thing in you. And so I think that they do attract young men with that, and there's like a goal that you have to attain. And then there's these rituals that you have to go through and you have to pass these tests. And then obviously they use it for evil.
It's within a cult context.
Yeah.
They used to have that in the States. I mean, Boy Scouts or whatever, Eagle Scout, you become an Eagle Scout. And there was much more extracurricular associations in the U.S. It's kind of died out with the advent of digital entertainment and things like that. This is what we have now. So,
yeah.
But, it's within the occult. So you're trying to get up in the higher echelons of the occult, and it happens within any occult or cult dynamic. So it's whether we're talking about the ONA, the Temple of Set, Church of Satan, OTO, Process Church, all that stuff,
So
I do too, actually, in a way.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but like, do you know some of their, do they have odd religious beliefs? Because like you said, they were sacrificing, like they were killing for a demon. So they obviously believe in some sort of they have some sort of religious beliefs, right? They think if I kill this person and I make this pact with whatever this is, I'm going to get something out of it. Like, do you know anything more about like particular demons that they believe in? Do they have
they
a
have
theology?
21 dark gods. 21 dark gods. That's
21
what they're
dark
trying
gods.
to presence. So that's where the original literature. I can tell you right now what the names of them. I mean, 21 dark gods. They've actually distinguished them from Lovecraft, but according to their tradition, the dark gods are waiting in what may be described as a parallel universe to return to Earth into our spatial causal universe. The universe of the dark gods is acausal, and you can open the contacts to the dark gods through stargates.
Interesting.
Yeah, it feels like this, like Nathan said, like this, like kind of like this draw to be stronger, be better, mixed in with this misanthropic energy. And there's like this sci-fi view of the world, which, I mean, to be fair, like a lot of religions have.
Yeah, there's a lot of religions have cosmic space opera element, more than you might think. Definitely Scientology, Mormonism
For sure. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I mean, just about, I mean, at some level, like all of them, I mean, if they're not yours, that's...
All of them are what?
Well, pretty much all religions have some supernatural element to them.
Absolutely.
So that's...
I've been having interesting conversations with folks that are really big into the UFO sort of stuff. And like, if you were to look at things like if you read the Book of Enoch, he's talking about how Enoch was taken up with like the chariots of the gods, and he was riding up there with them. Like, I mean, if you were looking at that like in like a secular view, you might say he was taken up in a spaceship, and, and there's just fascinating things like all these. Do you think that? So I don't know too much, William, about like your own beliefs. Do you believe in any? Do you think any of these demons exist? Do you think, or is this like, you think these guys are kooks?
I have a hard time believing that they're 21 dark gods exist. Yeah. But that's what they believe. That's the difference. They believe.
Yeah. Regardless, they think it, and they believe it's true, and they think that they are sacrificing something to something.
But I'm a Christian. Yeah. I believe in the Old Testament, New Testament. There clearly are powerful entities or forces that people have tried to contact that are.
Yeah.
The Old Testament prohibits you from doing. Like, you're not supposed to be a soothsayer or a magician. But there are people. Crowley was one of them. But people who have done that and rebelled. So I think that this can be seen in that same kind of light.
Yeah, but I think I'm a Christian myself as well. So when I'm asking about those dark gods, I'm not necessarily, I'm putting a little G on them. I'm saying they could be demons or something like that.
No doubt.
I don't know. Yeah.
No doubt. But here's the weird thing about the ONA, which differentiates them from another group, is you're supposed to presence these dark gods through yourself. So it's almost like a form of possession. So go watch that video again, Bad Habits. You could read my book, but watch him like he's acting like another entity, and then it all floats off when the sun comes out.
Well, and I really think that that's the only way demons can really manifest themselves in this, whatever, in our realm here, is through people, through possession. So that is fascinating. Yeah. And so they're like inviting those.
They're inviting that.
Yeah.
Inviting and then trying to get rid of. I mean, I don't mess around with that stuff. But that's what they're saying. And there's followers today. You can go to their websites. They are doing strange rituals involving blood and these dark gods. There's a symbol for each dark god in the ONA, which don't look like anything you would ever imagine. A lot of them are corresponding to star patterns, some constellation. So it's almost like at night they're looking at these things, trying to bring it down. And that's the importance of the nighttime, is you can see these stars and constellations. And the dark gods exist in those stargates in certain parts of the sky.
What is the history of this? I mean, I'm sorry, what's the name of the guy who started it? But do you know anything about his personal history? Because it just seems such a misanthropic.
Yeah, I include a whole chapter on his personal history, David.
Well, could you go into what he was like as a why was he trying to sow so much chaos into the world?
Well, that's a great question. Like, why does I mean, I don't know why somebody does that, but for him, I think in his writings, from what I could ascertain, is he saw National Socialism as the ideal philosophy for living life. So you're taking over, conquering, you're pushing yourself.
Yeah.
So that's his philosophical outlook, and that's what he saw in National Socialism. And that's probably what other people see in these kind of right wing. Like, this is, I want to be that overcoming person. I want to be the Ubermensch or whatever. So I think that was his identity. But what differentiated him from a socialist is he wasn't mainly focused on just the political. He saw, how am I going to get this? How am I going to get these other ideas into this ideology? And that's what the ONA is. And Hitler is not an antichrist in their worldview. He is an avatar. And there's a number of people who have Savitri Devi, this esoteric Nazism. There are people, there's a Guerrero who's from Chile. There's these guys who think that, and that's what the ONA thinks. So their timing of, it's not AD, it's not Common Era, which is crap garbage. Common Era is a bunch of bloody. There's not from the time Christ was born. For them, it's the year of Feiern, or the year of rejoicing, which is 1889 when Hitler was born.
Okay. Interesting. That's crazy. Can you explain a little bit more about Hitler being an avatar? So is he supposed to be like is he supposed to be like a dark god, but like a skin basically walking around?
I think that their view of him is that he was the great person of the age. Like, he wasn't seen as a mass murderer, but he was, he was somebody who achieved so many things in this world. So I think that that atavistic view of Hitler is crazy, because all he did is caused incredible suffering and misery and murder. So that to me, it's a perverse view. But I think I think if you are a pagan, which Hitler said he was, if you're a pagan, you don't have a Christian worldview, right? Ideas of rights and wrong, maybe solidified ideas based upon the New or Old Testament. I think maybe for somebody else, it's like, oh yeah, wow, this guy really achieves whatever. I mean, all he did is everything was destroyed. And it actually kind of gets really crazy, because some of the ideas of the Nazis and of the ONA literally go back, the kind of black sun worship goes way back supposedly to Atlantean times, in magical times. So you'll see that black sun motif through the far right. So they know, like, they're consciously knowing that they're destructive. They want to destroy to create something new. So they know, they're conscious of it. The destruction is part of the process. And that's possibly what Hitler thought. Like, that's how crazy it is. Like, it's like the black magician bleeds when he causes bleeding. Like, that's the concept. And I think that those guys at the top, Himmler and Hitler, probably knew they were destructive, but they thought they were destroying to an end. Like an end.
Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. That's interesting.
And that's in the ONA too. Yeah. So they have kind of these Spenglerian ideas. One guy's Francis Parker Yockey, the new Imperium. So they're going to try to create a new Imperium, but they want it to be Darwinian. They want it just like the Nazis. We're going to kill off the Untermenschen or whatever.
Yeah, I get that. Like, there's a part of me, though, that, like, they advocate human sacrifice for the sake of human sacrifice.
No question. Question. They call it a sacrifice in the ONA.
Yeah. So most Nazis that, I mean, I'm not too versed in Nazism, but they seem like they're like they kind of push that stuff aside, like it might be a means to an end, but it's not necessarily like what they lead with, which separates this group. Like,
well, I don't think this group leads this with. I bet if you saw an ONA member, he'd probably sniff you out, try to figure out what you were about, whether you were the right candidate for the ONA. This is not a group that's putting pamphlets out saying anybody can join, because I don't think they would take anybody. Well, to pass these tests. My point is that this group is more of an elite group, and I think that some of the ideas, even at the core of Hitler, like Wewelsburg and things like that, those core ideas you don't see on the internal, the sugar-coated exterior.
Fascinating. So I wonder if they I wonder if how well known these guys are, like in right wing and like white nationalist movements. I wonder if they're like something to be like sought after. Like
That's a great question. I mean, I think that in my book, I show that there's a battle in between the occulted Nazis and the kind of more political Nazis.
yeah,
And I think that even within the occult, like I've talked to occultists who are not on the far right, but they've heard of ONA people. Like, so they're in the occult community, could be anything, Wicca. I mean, there's so many different stripes, just like Christianity. Christianity, you could get a totally different view of Christianity from somebody who says they're Christian, Orthodox, Catholic, Quaker. So I think that within the ON, like people are aware. People I've talked to in the occult were aware of the ONA, and there's not many around.
So what I find so strange too is it's like an occult weird religion. It's a death cult, like you said, but they also have to tie in ethnicity into this. It's like, are white people supposed to be something different? Like, are other people like myself, a beaner, are we something different? Like, are they, or they're just better than us? Or
it's interesting because they have this kind of view of like the homo, I can't remember what they call it, like a different type of man. Like they describe it almost like a Neanderthal and somebody else. So these people are lesser than us. We are not. The founders were on the right of England, right? They're white guys, but they had a very sympathetic view towards women. And now the person who's apparently the outer head of the order is an Asian woman. Like that's the one who's supposedly running the whole thing, or with a Spanish last name too, by the way.
That's fascinating.
Ortega. Her last name's Ortega.
Well, I was thinking about, because there's a really interesting tie between
allegedly, sorry. I have to make that point.
Like Hinduism and white nationalism, right? I mean, and Nazism, right? I mean, like Savitri Devi that you mentioned, like they tie a lot of their occult stuff from like Hinduism, correct? Like,
yeah. And there's the thing, I mean, it's weird. And Nazism is weird because at least the Germans at that time, they looked to the Aryans, right? They looked to that area. So the area of the Aryans was like Iran and northern India. So that's why they went on those tours to Tibet and all that stuff, because that's where they saw themselves as their founders of their ethnicity, which was part of the reason why this great push into Russia, because that they thought their mythology was like pointed that direction. So there's a lot of interest in those in Hinduism and Hinduistic ideas, no doubt. Even though I think that the swastika comes from Hinduism, right? It comes out of
yeah. So I'm fascinated too. Like, so are the Indians, are they supposed to be more Aryan than the whites? Or, like, I wonder how that works, how they can let in an Asian woman, allegedly, how that works.
It's a great question. I don't
choose.
I don't know if it's really that race. I mean, maybe it was assumed back when he started writing that it was an English ethnic thing, but it seems like it's opened itself up, and it's not as singular ethnic ethno-national, especially when you're talking about it being in Russia, Serbia. So all these different ethnicities are picking up the ideology.
So
if you want to, I mean, these guys are fighting with the anti-fascist cliques all over the world. So the fight between the far right and what we call anti-fascist or hard left, it's happening everywhere. So they're bickering each other. I mean, some of these battles, it's not really that funny, but it's curious to see that same conflict happening. Even in Serbia, people are bitching at the people they know who are ONA members, and what's happening in the States. And actually, a lot of my research when I was researching this were repositories of pretty decent research that was done by far left people. I don't know. You could call me a centrist, I guess. But they know each other. So the far right detests the far left as much as the far left detests the far right. And it's all online.
Tony, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, I was just going to ask, like, how do they square that with not being ethnocentric? I mean, the Nazis were all about the master race and all. So how do you go from that to...
I don't know. I mean, I don't know any numbers. I know what their literature is.
Yeah.
Like I said, at the very beginning in 1980, we're in a completely different environment. I don't know how this. You would not, if you saw her, like this person who supposedly is the Ed, you would just go, "This is like a foodie who, writes on her blog." You'd never, ever know that she was.
Do you know any of the
That's
financial
wild.
history of it? Like, what are they making for money?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of these guys had regular careers and so there'd be people who the Ed Sheeran stuff is just the tip of the iceberg. There's
Yeah,
people out there who are teachers and things who know about LNA and musicians.
that's fascinating. I mean, Ed Sheeran's gang in the video was pretty
Go
multiracial.
Yeah, read my book and watch that video again. These are laying out ONA ideology. Maybe there's some other group that has the same ideology as the ONA, but that is a carbon copy of what's in their doctrines, in my opinion. In their book.
That's so fascinating. How did the balloons tie in? Because you mentioned that, and then we saw the video. What do the balloons tie into the?
You should probably go watch my Smiley Face Killers documentary. You can get it on.
Oh, okay.
But I go into that 1 and 2. All of that. But it's
That's
just
fascinating.
It goes in. It probably goes back through Alan Moore. It goes back to it was used in the kind of techno era in the UK, but it has a exoteric and an esoteric meaning. And I think Alan Moore used that. And the precept and concept is that the life or the world is kind of a big joke, and it's kind of a cosmic joke. So you can do what you want because it doesn't really have any meaning. And you can see that in Crowley. You got to read. You have to, you should watch my stuff because I go in and explain it. But Alan Moore's The Watchman, he is an occultist. He says he spends half of his time practicing the occult. He's putting in these symbols for a reason. In the intro to The Watchman, the guy's character's name is the comedian. He goes to Vietnam and kills people because it's a big joke. He thinks it's fun. Gets his cat kicks off of it. So,
wow. Yeah. So I'm always fascinated because you can see these things. Like I don't watch the Super Bowl, to be honest with you. I don't watch sports, but you can always see the occult, different symbolisms and the different things that they do. Like it seems that, I mean, it's a pretty bold move for Ed Sheeran to be like, I'm putting this whole thing in this music video. Like,
well, but it's not even him. It could be his artistic director. It could be the director. He may not even know squat. You don't know. Like somebody says, Justin Bieber, put your hand on your face and make a sign of silence, and then put it through your eyeball. Justin Bieber doesn't know squat. They're just telling him to do it. Like that's their culture because they're part of the occult world order. There is a cult. So Ed Sheeran may not know squat. He probably just says, we're going to dress you up at this. You're going to look like a vampire. Sun will come up. You'll be back.
He could be in the leadership. He could be one of the top dogs. That's fascinating. But I'm always curious why they do it. Why do they have to taunt it, throw it in our face?
Well, that's the whole thing. So that's the whole, goes back to the basic precepts of occultism. It's occulted to the non-initiate. And it goes back to Masonry. Everything is about, we have the inside knowledge. You're the profane. We don't have to explain it to you because we can put it in front of you. We know among ourselves, you don't know squat, and we'll leave you mystified. And the very sophisticated, some of these people at the top of the occult are not dumb. They're not, Arthur Clarke, Kubrick knows all this stuff. They are not stupid people, but they know what they're doing. It's an inside joke. They have the symbolism. You can stare at this, monolith like a monkey. You have no idea what it means, but we know what it means. It's 11 feet tall, and it ties into the New World Order. So
yeah.
So it's really an ashlar. It's part of the Masonic system. When you see that monolith, and so that's just one example of the play of the occult on people. So the people on the inside, it's like an inside kind of occult cult where we know what it means and you don't. Sign of silence means you just keep your mouth shut. It goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. It goes back to Harpocrates. It's the sign of Harpocrates. So those concepts, that's why the Masons go back to Egypt, because it had a lot of those concepts that they integrate through Greece to the present.
Yeah.
It probably goes back from Egypt to Mesopotamia to the very beginning of time.
Fascinating. Yeah. And so they've kept these old occult religions and ideas and things like that and passed it down, this old knowledge.
And it's a function
really...
of power. There's a fascinating, I wish I could remember this guy's book, but he put out a book. He's really an ethnographer. And he said that even in old ancient societies, whether it was the witch man or the magic, what's it, like the witch or the
witch doctor,
shaman, like the shaman.
Yeah,
the shaman was there to mystify the people but maintain power. So in Aztec environment, the shaman who cuts the heart out terrifies the populace. You could be back next, but he's through the use of magic, he's solidifying that social system at the top, and it's incredible. So you can see those things even play out to the present. So even that you sophisticated, technologically sophisticated societies, some of that stuff is still happening.
Wow, that's really interesting, man. Don't you get any questions?
I got ideas, but I don't know about questions.
Ideas, let's hear them, man.
Well, because I think that a lot of this stuff cuts both ways. Like when you say like the shamans did, I think that is completely true, that they are there to maintain power. But also some of them do heal. Like a lot of them change the way people think. So it's like, I think there's a level of complexity there that
I'm just using a generality. I mean, these shamans are like healing shamans, right? Even the old Native American Indians or there's different purposes of witches or Wicca or whatever, all that stuff that comes on.
But there's always been an occult tradition as well.
Yeah, go look at the Druids. The Druids were there to maintain power, and the king had it. And if you messed up, they kill you. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
I think that's one of the things I'm most depressed about, is that Rome really did kill most of the Druids, right? Like we don't have a whole lot of, because they didn't have written history, and so we only get little bits and pieces and what the Romans said about them, which is too bad, because man, they were fascinating, because they were like the doctors, they were like the teachers, they were like judges, they were like, Druids sounded pretty darn interesting. They sounded pretty cool. They were like a mage, like from what I've heard.
Prehistory, right?
Yeah. But we'll never really know, which is, I mean, we know little bits and pieces, but it's fascinating. I would have liked to learn a little bit more about, but I think a lot of the Gaelic maybe traditions and probably religions were probably tied to the Scandinavian. Like they had a lot of those same like Celtic religions, right? They had like, they didn't call him Odin, they call him Woden, right? And things like that. And
yeah, some of the gods were the same and traditions were the same. I think they all had kind of like a horned god too. I think a lot of that, some of the stuff that passes for Wicca today goes all the way back to prehistory, Druidism, early Celticism, as far as I know.
Yeah. Those darn Romans, they ruined it all.
But this group, I mean, there's a subtext through the ONA of Druidism. It's all, go look at what's really weird about the ONA is like you don't see the overt symbolism. There is a symbol of the ONA. It's on the cover of my book, but you'll see weird pictures of the forest or a stream, so it's taking you back to like the primeval history when you see this ONA. So go, if you do the research, you'll just see the similarity of what they're doing, and again, it's another occulted idea. So the uninitiated, that's a pretty picture of some leaves in fall and a tree in fall. But to somebody at the ONA, they'll see it and go, okay, that's where I did my tests, and that's where I was overnight, and that's where I'm supposed to take my victims and stuff.
So that's an interesting difference, is that they don't necessarily, they are more occult, huh? They're more secretive. They don't put it out there as much. That is super.
I mean, it's barely on the radar. I swear the ONA was underground probably until the last 2 years or 3 years. You go back and look at any crime associated with the ONA. Just type in order of 9 annual crimes. You could probably do it on Wikipedia. There's a decent Wikipedia page. You won't find anything for like 30 years. That was that secret. So like there's nothing associated with the ONA. The reason that I wrote the book is because it all surfaced. All these people started to pop up with Atomwaffen and murders and stuff like that. People
You know,
should know this.
I have fantasies about moving to Idaho, and I have a friend that lives pretty close, like in Spokane, and he's telling me every time he goes to like the Coeur d'Alene area, like real north parts of Idaho, like he's also a Mexican guy. They'll straight up like there's some serious right wingers up there that are like Spick, get out of here and shit. I'm like nowhere else in the country. I currently live in Portland, Oregon, so it's a little different out here.
Go to the some parts of the deep
Yeah.
south, man. They'll look at you. They look at me funny, and I'm pretty white. There's little pockets here and there.
Yeah.
And some of these places they have very. I mean, it's like what's that movie? Gosh, it's like
American History X. Which one is it?
No, it's worse than that. It's like the one where they burn the big effigy at the end. What is it? The Wicker Man. It's like the Wicker Man. There's like literal Wotan worship, Odin worship. Like they're pagans. Pagans are really dangerous. Their sensibilities are dangerous, man. They're not Christian. Some of those pagans who take themselves seriously. The dates are important. The days are important, and they view human killing way different than other people do.
So like normal people don't ever even see it, but I mean, there's a reason why, like on a full moon, there is more crime that happens. There are more deaths. Like there's these little things that we just, normies just don't understand. But like, there's shooter season. Like if there's going to be some school shootings, it typically happens within a few months. There's these weird rituals, occult rituals that happen, like sacrifices that happen. And then it's, and if you start to see the patterns, you can tie them back. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it really is something else. I mean, you just it's all very secretive. You got to kind of key into it and watch it. But that's true.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that keeps me out of northern Idaho because, man, it's beautiful. That's where I want to, where I think about moving. And my friend was telling me there was actually several killings that have happened recently where white supremacists will just kill some people up there. And now you're having me wonder if like they were making a pact with a demon, one of these dark gods. And
could be an ONA member. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's the other thing in the occult, which is kind of different, is that maybe in Christianity there is, but some of these guys will bleed over. They'll be parts of 2 or 3 different groups. So they're not just ONA members. And Crowley actually encouraged all occultists to join as many occult groups as possible. He didn't say, don't be loyal to one, just go join them all. So whenever you see somebody that has like a lot of occult allegiances, that you're dealing with somebody who's read something or got some information, like to not be so, might be
provincial, I guess. A little thelemic going on, some thelemic action going on.
I just had an encounter with one. I mean, they're out there. There's one on Twitter. Oh my gosh. You can go look at my Twitter page. They're out there. They don't know the deeper, darker things about Crowley, the child rape and the baby rape and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm going to read your book and I want to have you back on and talk Crowley because he's an interesting cat. Interesting, scary dude.
1875 to 1947. Yeah, I know. Anytime, man. Just let me know.
Tony, you got any last minute stuff?
Not too much, man. Like I'm kind of fascinated by just the like organizational structure, how many people are like self-initiated. It seems like it would just attract wild, unstable people.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't seem like healthy people are not going to be attracted to something that requires human sacrifice. So I mean,
that's the other fascinating thing too, though. So like in the same way that it's a very elitist cult, anyone could basically start their own chapter. And in that weird way, I find it fascinating that we hadn't heard of this a lot sooner. Like it hadn't come out and like there hadn't been some sloppy people that.
Some people just pass right by it. They wouldn't see the connection. So they wouldn't know. There's a chapter here in the States in Nexium called the Temple of Blood. It was in the news today. And they found out that the head of the Temple of Blood, which describes itself as a Nexian of the ONA, the head was a Fed and had taken $160,000 over time since 2003. And he exposed a lot of people. He led to a lot of arrests out of Adam Waffen. So I think Atomwaffen has changed its name. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but
Yeah.
And-
Yeah. I really always wonder how many of this is like run by feds, because the feds also infiltrate quite a bit.
well, some people have said to me the ONA is a Fed operation. If it's a Fed operation, it can't, because they come out of the UK in 1980. That's all very well established. They're doing a terrible job because it's still influencing. The ideology is finding young adherents who do crazy stuff. You have Meltzer, von Nudegem, people in Russia. There's people all over. And these are just the crimes that surface. Just like you said, there's things that may have happened. Nobody knows their real pedigree. They don't know why somebody did something. They don't know the mens rea.
Yeah, when it's just a random killing, because you said they want to kill and get away with it. So how many deaths can be attributed to this? We'll never know. Yeah.
And it's so easy, like in this day and age we're living in, like ideologies just perpetuate themselves online, and pretty much, people just read something and they're like, "Hey, I'll do that," or then they bring up their own thing and make their own copy of it. So like
the founders of the ONA were strange because they weren't as rigid about things. So you can read this and integrate it in. You don't even have to join the membership. So they have these weird words within the ONA that they have people who aren't members, but they took some of the ideology. I mean, they're called Bolobians, or they have some weird word that, and it's the weirdness of these cults, and it's a kind of a standard thing among cults, is they have their own particular language that you have to learn the meaning of the words. Look through Scientology. They have just a weird, talk to a Scientologist when they're rambling. They have almost a completely different language. They're speaking English, but that same phenomenon, that same kind of approach is in the ONA, where they just have words that you would need. If you read it, you would have to read an ONA dictionary to know what it means.
So what the other thing that I sort of found fascinating too is so I wonder if there's some old adherents to the hard racial essentialist that, but then there's also now maybe an Asian woman that's, heading up some chapter. I wonder if there's divisions and splinters, or even maybe
I think so.
Yeah, I imagine.
She's supposedly running the show. They've
can imagine some rumors. Angry white man not happy about that.
That's the whole thing. That's weird. That's the whole thing. It's not the form of a pure. You have to be a pure ethnic member or something. That's kind of what's scary about it, actually, too, is that they're very friendly with females. They have this old, what do they call it? They have the rune with the way. So there's something within the group that appeals to women, So, and the Catholic Church does that. A lot of these churches try to appeal to women with their own kind of approach. So I think that it's very different. It's not. This is not your. And I spent a whole chapter of them, Maya, talking with or in correspondence with Michael Aquino and other members of the Temple of Set, and he's distinguishing himself from them through a variety of means, and he thinks they're all posers. I mean, I think essentially what he's saying is that
Michael Aquino thinks these guys are posers, or the other way around.
David Maya thinks Aquino is just a bunch of play actors in there. They're not really. Yeah. They're not really following the dictates of what they say that their religion is.
Yeah, I mean, because that there was also that split there, right, between the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set thought the Church of Satan were posers, so they set up their own thing.
Good point.
Yeah. That's fascinating, and because according to the Temple of Set, right? So are they against human sacrifice? The Temple of Set? I think they have to outwardly say that, right?
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. No, read my book. Those sections about what Mayan says he knows about them and what they put out in public are two different things. Well, Maya posing as Stephen Brown. So I take my position is that more than likely these pseudonyms are Maya writing it, or Maya and somebody else, but it's definitely forwarded by Maya, and it seems like the Temple of Set kind of sniffed him out because there were multiple people who met the personage under different circumstances. So one met Stephen Brown, I think, and the other one met Anton Long, and then they came back to each other and said, "Hey, that's the same guy." So I think that was, if I remember correctly, that was in the second chapter of my book. So I think that my book is interesting too because it shows the global dynamics. That people are talking internationally from people of similar sensibilities are talking internationally, and then it just kind of grew up into an international thing. And I think that that's really bad. With the advent of the internet, you and I can talk, but these guys can talk too. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if they had their own podcast and we don't know about it.
like I said, there's an oral tradition, so there's probably stuff we don't know. There's stuff that they've written down you can read through, and then there's this stuff.
To be a fly on the wall, or maybe not. I don't know.
Well, maybe you wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, go read the stuff where they try to select an offer. I mean, it's brutal stuff. If somebody adheres to it, yeah.
And is there anything particular about the victim that they choose, or it's just a random person?
No, it's not random at all.
Yeah.
There's a whole manual on selecting an offer. Yeah. So they actually go through a selection process. Is this person fit? So it's kind of like an evolutionary approach, you know?
Yeah, kind of Darwinian, right? Like they take people who are,
like the old man.
I don't know.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
Ramsey, that's what they call them. Homo hubris, the hubriati. They have all these kind of strange words. They're going to be the global galacticus. But the Homo hubris is like an arrogant person.
Yeah. So I also found that fascinating. You were talking about Stargates. I'm a big nerd. I've been watching SG-1. I love the Stargate SG-1. What is a Stargate to them? What do they actually think that there's
like? So you would call this is the material world, and then there's a spiritual world. They would call it the causal world and the acausal world. So the Stargate is between this world and another one, a causal to acausal.
Okay, that's interesting. So maybe when we die, we go through the stars, like as you were saying, there's different constellations,
that's there. I don't know what they're.
Yeah.
They have in their religion that you can live on, you can switch souls with somebody, and your soul can be preserved in a triangular pyramidal crystal.
Fascinating. So we might have Hitler hanging out in a little tiny pyramid somewhere.
I don't know. The ONA was after Hitler, so they'd have to resurrect him, man. You know, they'd have to do something, or maybe they have his genes and they could do a little Boys from Brazil stuff, but. Anyway, I got to run, guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, my
we
pleasure.
appreciate it, man.
All right, take care. Have a good one.